what's up guys? Welcome back to my channel. Thank you guys so much for tuning in today. So we were in dire need of a fourth bedroom in this house. We decided to DIY it. Before I get into the video though, I do want to welcome you guys if this is your first time here. If it is, I would love for you guys to stick around. Make sure you guys hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you're notified every time I upload a video. Full disclaimer here, I am not an expert, I am not a professional, I am just a girl trying to do some stuff on a budget. Just so you guys know, this is gonna be maybe a 2 or 3 part video because it's not completely done. Our goal had been to get into a new house last year, 2020. We all know what happened there. The housing market is ridiculous. I think it's a complete joke and houses are super expensive. We would only be getting a little more extra square footage than we have in this house, and then probably a lot of updates to make. We would probably double or triple our debt. So I really don't want to go into a $400,000 debt for a house that's not going to be much better than where we are now. And then we also talked about building. So to build, we would probably get a pretty penny for our house now, but then that would mean we would have to rent. And rent prices right now are double our mortgage. And I just don't want to stress about that. You know, the only thing that we were missing really is an extra bedroom because my kids, my boys, my not so little boys anymore, they're sharing a room and sharing a bunk bed and they need more space. If you guys have the funds to hire a professional, by all means do that. In this case, I actually did get 2 different quotes for adding a room to our house. It was gonna cost me 65 grand to build a room out to my house. Like one room, 65 grand. So this is actually our dining room. That was our very last option to create our dining room, close it off and make it into a room. We also have a family room on the other side that, you know, is big enough to be an entire dining room or just to be still a family room with the seating area and stuff in the kitchen. So we're not hurt by our space becoming smaller or anything like that. We actually have plenty of space. It's just an awkward layout in this house, so we kind of had to work with what we had. And then I got a second quote that was gonna be $5,500 for labor and material, not including the doors, not including the hardware that we were gonna put, just to literally build this wall and then add a pocket door. And so I called my brother and I asked him how comfortable he felt helping me make a wall in our room and create this into a room. And he's never done this type of project before. He's done many projects. His home looks great. He always does DIY projects, and so I put my confidence in him. So right now we're going to show you guys part 1. I know that was a lot for you guys to hear, but you definitely needed to hear the background so you know why we're doing this, how we are. All right guys, let's get on to the DIY. So this is how my dining room looks like right now. I have such a disaster. I feel like every time I do something, the clutter always ends up here. And you guys can see how it's open concept to the living room. And at first I was scared that adding a wall was going to close off our space. So I really had to be careful with what I wanted to do. So on the right there, you guys will see an opening to the kitchen and the hallway. What I decided to do there was to do a bifold door, or like a folding door, but barn door style. So when you open and close, there's brackets at the top that it slides in and out of. That way I don't have a full door that opens and closes and takes up space. And then it also took away the trouble of making a pocket door or a hidden door, because there was just like outlets and then plumbing that goes on that wall that we didn't have to deal with. So on this left hand side here, you guys will see half of my wall. I decided to make it about 56 inches wide, and it leaves a big opening on the right. That way it doesn't feel so enclosed and it still feels nice and open. My initial thought was to do like French doors here, but again, I don't want them opening and closing and taking up space on either side, so I decided to do a barn door style type of enclosure. And the brackets that I got, or the hardware that I got for the barn door, are going to be attached to the ceiling. So as you guys can see right here where I'm circling, we were going to do a partial wall that way also, like going across, but again, I didn't want to bring that ceiling down and make it feel closed up. So we just decided to leave that open and then use the hardware that goes attached to the ceiling
And so with that thought in mind, I went ahead and took my brother to Lowe's, or actually he took me because he was ready to go. When I asked him, he definitely took on the challenge, and I kind of had an idea that it was going to be a little bit more simple than a $5,500 job, and it definitely was. I think I only spent like $270 on this trip. So yeah, he was definitely helpful in, knowing what materials to get, even though he hasn't actually made a wall or added a partition wall ever. He had help from one of his friends and kind of broke it down for him to know what he should be doing. So here we're just measuring everything out to make sure that when we add the wall, it's going to be flush to the right side. You guys see where that mirror is, right? We want to make sure that the wall on the left is going to be even to that or flush to that. So we're just measuring from the other end of the room to this end, and then just going from one side to the middle to the other side, and again making sure everything's nice and even. But there's always a bump in the road, and just so you guys know, there was an issue with my walls not being level and the corners there. One side was higher than the other one. It was just a situation, but my brother was able to figure that out. And right here we are just making sure that we are in the studs in the ceiling for when we put our first piece of board on there. So these are 2 by 6 by 8 feet, so 2 inches by 6 inches by 8 feet long, and we're just measuring them out to 56 inches because that's how far out we want that wall. And he's just going to go ahead and cut them to make the piece for the top of the ceiling, or that goes on the ceiling, and then the one that goes on the floor. So here's where my husband stepped in, and I kind of just sat back and recorded. This is a first for me. I'm always super hands-on with projects like this, but I definitely wanted my husband to gain that confidence so he's more up to doing projects like this in the future. So the one issue that we had here, because again, it wasn't level, is that when we put the screw in on one side and then tried to do it on the other side, it was buckling. So just one thing is make sure that you have screws that are long enough to go through that board, through the drywall, and then to the stud at the top. And then just basically repeating the process to the bottom piece of board, which is again 56 inches long. And then once that's down, they are measuring from the bottom of the top board to the top of the bottom board, just to make sure that the support beam that they're going to put on first fits in there nice and snugly. You don't want it loose. You definitely want it to be in there, not like super tight, but just snug. So I'm actually looking at the receipt right now, and I spent a total of $246.13 for what you guys are going to be seeing right now. I still have to spend more money on other stuff, but I will go ahead and list the materials that I used down below, as well as the price of what I spent. And just so you guys know, I did have some material left over, which would have made it cheaper if I would have gotten the correct amount, but you always want more, not less, just to make sure you have enough when you're doing your projects. So essentially, these are the studs that are behind a typical wall, and they are 16 inches away from each other. One thing though is that we started from the end here, and then we did 16 inches in and then in, and there was like a little bit of space in between the last stud that we put in to the wall. It wasn't 16 inches apart, but we did end up putting a post right on the wall, and you guys will see what I mean. Okay, so funny story here. I felt really bad because my brother said, all right, here, Ty, you go ahead and take the screw and screw those screws in there. Screw, screw, screw. And he was having such a hard time. I'm like, seriously, dude, come on. It's just a screw. So my brother's like, something's not right. You know, he was trying to like make up excuses for why he couldn't do it. And then it turns out I just gave him a dull screw, so he was having a hard time putting it in there. It's like I was setting him up for failure, and I know he got sort of embarrassed because he's like, really? But yeah, just next time you hand your husband something, make sure it's like the correct thing. That way he doesn't go through that embarrassment. So the drywall that we're using is like a mold resistant type of drywall, and I think this is good for like bathrooms and stuff, but we just went ahead and used it for this wall. So they come in a pack of 2. We did get a total of 4 pieces, which was way more than we needed. I think there was like half of it left over. And honestly, what I did, instead of having to deal with just taking it back to Lowe's, I just put it on the side of our house and somebody picked it up for free. I thought I was going to have trouble with the cutting. I thought we were going to need a saw, but drywall is basically just like, it's chalky. So all you have to do is score it. I know you guys can't see what the heck we're doing, but all you have to do is score it with like a utility knife and then snap it and just cut the back side of it and it's ready to go.
I won't forget, you know the secrets of the late night breeze. It's all pretend. Don't you worry.
Now, before adding the drywall, we did actually do some support beams right through the center of the other ones, and my brother just cut them to size. We went ahead and drilled them in. That way there's another section that we can screw in the drywall.
Don't you worry now, my love. Your day was rough, an easy slip and then you're out the door. You had enough, these empty vows come again no more. Oh, it's all.
And we weren't really sure how far apart the drywall screws go in. I think my brother had said maybe like a foot apart, but at some point we just went to town on it. And I thought about it afterwards, thinking like if at one point I want to hang something on the wall, I hope I don't hit one of those screws, because I feel like we may have put more than we needed. But, you know, better safe than sorry. I don't want my drywall falling off of the beams or the studs. Once the first side of the wall was up, or the drywall was up, we went ahead and took the insulation that we purchased. This pack was about $63 or so, and it was just the right size for, as the right size widthwise for the in between the studs. And again, I did have a lot of this left over. I'm sure somebody really appreciated the free drywall and the free insulation that they copped the next day. So yeah, my brother was just careful to put that in there, and he used some gloves so that you don't irritate your skin. And he just kind of stuffed it right in there, cut it, and then put the other piece on the top. And he just went all along in between the studs or the beams, whatever they're called.
So don't you worry now, don't you worry now, all this soon will end. Don't you worry now, don't you worry now, my love.
So this is about as much work as I did. I basically just filmed, handed them tools every once in a while. I drilled and I put some screws in, but that's about it. And like I said, it felt really weird because usually I'm super hands-on, but it was nice kind of letting go of being in control and letting someone else do it. But I also like to watch and see everything that they're doing so that I know what to do for next time when I want to jump into a project like this. So the final step on this wall, you guys can see on the right there, my husband is screwing in the metal corners that's holding the pieces together, and then that's going to give it some sturdiness for after we put the mud. So the mud is the one that my brother's using right now. It's the drywall joint compound. So basically we're using that to cover up all the holes where the screws were put in. It's going to be used to fill in the gaps in between the drywall, and then eventually will also be used to cover the metal piece on there. So yeah, just any piece that's showing, we want to make sure that we have a really nice smooth surface. So I wasn't going to add texture to the wall, but I don't want it to look all crappy. So I will be adding texture eventually. I think on the second video you guys will see that because I haven't done it yet. But as you guys can see, we're going into it with a nice thick layer on there to cover that gap in between the drywall. So once that's on there, we're going to take some drywall tape and put it right on there. So you guys can see the drywall tape is used to cover the gaps, and then we'll also be using it on the corners to hold the wall and the original wall together. You guys will see what I mean. And this is the process that took a little bit longer because we do have to wait for the mud to dry in between coats, and you want it to be nice and smooth. Again, if you weren't to use texture or add texture on the wall, it's gonna look kind of funky if you don't do it right. So the very first layer that we did, we had to wait a day for it to dry, and then the next day we went into it with the second layer, and then the third day we went into it with a third layer. And yeah, it was a pretty strong smelling stuff, so we try to do it at night. That way we didn't have to be around it like when it's drying. But that's pretty much the process, you guys. I know that I'm not showing too much of us doing like the mud and stuff. Oh, look at my babies. But I'll be honest with you, sometimes I forget to press record. So in all honesty, I forgot to actually film the rest of the coats. Also because it was already getting late and stuff. But either way, I will be sharing the next step 2 video or like part 2 video next week, hopefully, so you guys can see more of the progress or the process of what we're going to be doing.
One thing I forgot to mention is that although it's not officially technically a complete bedroom because it's not going to have a closet, there's no closet space, which does it count as a bedroom, you know, when you sell it? Probably not. Maybe it counts as a bonus room. It could be an office. It could be potential for a 4th bedroom, and it can also be just a closed off dining area. It's not closed off yet, but you know, for those of you who might have that question.
All right, so here's from beginning to the end of part 1, and honestly, you guys, I cannot believe that I was almost going to pay $5,500 for somebody to do this. It was craziness, right? So you guys know me, DIY on a budget.
All right, guys, so there you have it. Our partial wall is up. You guys already saw it in the beginning. And again, we're not professionals or anything. We were just this was an experiment for all of us. And I thought it was going to be pretty simple. And my brother definitely helped me. My brother definitely helped reassure us, and I also feel like my husband gained some confidence in more home improvement projects, because if you guys see all the projects, it's usually me who's hands-on, but I was really, really happy and proud of him for jumping in there and for me to lose the control and step back a little bit and let them do their thing. So you guys, if you did enjoy this video, make sure you guys stay tuned for part 2. So the next step is we still have to do one more layer of the mud, and then we have to do the texture. I still don't know which way I'm gonna go, but I'm gonna go an easy route. We have to paint at the baseboards, we've got to do the doors, all that stuff. So I'm really excited for that and showing you guys the whole progress of this room, which by the way is gonna be my little Milani's room. You guys, with that said, thank you guys again for tuning in. If you did enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.
It's not safe to be on your own. It's so far from home. As long as I cannot hear a sound.